Over the last month, between a college visit and spring break, I've spent a fair amount of time in the South, and I've noticed a few differences between Southerners and Northerners. A love of sweet tea, barbecue, grits, and biscuits, for example. How I'm always called ma'am. And most notably, the use of the term y'all. It comes in a variety of forms. There's the basic y'all. There's also all y'all, which is normally used in bigger settings. And once, the boys and I were even addressed as y'alls, which I found very confusing because isn't y'all already plural? While y'all doesn't quite flow off my tongue as naturally as it does for some, like Rabbi Jen Lader or Temple's executive director, Jason Plotkin, who both grew up in the South, I like it. And while I tend to say, hey, you guys, y'all is friendlier. It's gender neutral and it's inclusive. Y'all just makes you feel good. It's hard to be mad when someone says, hey, y'all. Now for some background. Technically, y'all is a contraction of you all, the second person plural. It's spelled Y''ALL. If you spell it YA''LL, that's wrong. It's not a new word. One linguist cites its first recorded use 200 years ago in 1824. Another traces it back to a letter written in 1727, but no one really knows. Just that it was possibly brought to the South by Scottish and Irish immigrants, having evolved from the term ye-ah. It's also likely that it could have been part of the vernacular of the black slaves, borrowed by the Caribbean Creole dialect. However it made its way, y'all is a dominant part of Southern English today. But take note, it is no longer limited to the South, as you shall soon see when Jason comes up to deliver the announcements. So currently, we are in an interesting time in the Jewish calendar, which coincidentally embodies the essence of the word y'all. Leading up to both Purim and Passover, the preceding Shabbatot are themed and named for the occasion. This Shabbat is called Shabbat HaChodesh, which falls right before the new month of Nisan when we celebrate Passover, and is a reminder that the festival is just 2 weeks away. So start making your soup, or in this particular case, start roasting your shank bone now. In a special Torah portion, we read that each family must prepare a lamb and eat it in its entirety in celebration of the festival. And if the family isn't big enough for such a big portion, they should share it with a neighbor. I think that this is one of, if not the first, example of community in the Torah, where people come together, care for one another, and share their bounty. As one commentator notes, God wasn't particularly interested in the sacrifice, but in the community that was built around it. Now, all y'all have been to barbecues before, whether northern or southern style, and you know what it feels like to gather around the fire and build bonds of friendship and camaraderie. When we eat together, we create a sense of family, connection, and shared responsibility for each other, which is what y'all is all about. And for this reason, Passover is a time of welcoming guests. Some say it is the highest of all mitzvot. The Haggadah reminds us of how in the days of Rav Huna, he used to throw open the door and shout, let all who are hungry come and eat. Or he might have said, let y'all who are hungry come and eat. Something my boys used to love to do when they were younger. And while there was never anyone on the other side of the door, we always invited friends and neighbors to our table, because sitting down together is an opportunity to share and learn from each other, although truth be told, they were usually like-minded friends and neighbors. This past week, the Hartman Institute hosted a conversation with Daniel Hartman here at the J. You may know him as the host of the For Heaven's Sake podcast. It's a brilliant program which you can find wherever you get your podcasts. He talked about what it means to sit down at a table with those with whom you disagree. It's certainly easy to find those folks these days, living in such a polarized time. Consider what it would mean to sit down to dinner and talk and share perspectives and beliefs with someone from the other side of the aisle. What I took from his talk was that if we don't have the expectation that we have to agree, but merely that we come to listen, and remember that we are made B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God, we will always gain something. It got me thinking about the organization Roots that sent representatives from Israel to Detroit last year to visit with our community. I was impressed then, and I am equally impressed now. Their mission includes fostering a grassroots movement of understanding, nonviolence, and transformation among Israelis and Palestinians. You might say that it is a pie-in-the-sky mission, but it's working, even in times of war. They met last month for the first time in person since October 7th and shared personal stories which prompted an awareness and empathy for what is happening to the other, something they didn't understand until they sat down face to face. Natalie Zaks, the coordinator of the Northern Branch of Roots, shared an experience of making mishloach manot care packages for Israeli families who have been displaced from the north, along with packing 2.5 tons of food for Palestinian Roots families in need. She writes, "Is it possible for your heart to be simultaneously filled with overwhelming joy and at the same time broken into pieces? That's what happened to me yesterday." The experience, she writes, was not just about the physical act of packing boxes. It was about sharing laughter, tears, and moments of deep connection. As we finished packing, something surreal happened. Palestinians and Israelis alike heard gunshots across the road. It served as a stark reminder of the ongoing violence and conflict that plague our region. Yet in that moment, we held on to each other a little tighter, reaffirming our commitment to a future built on understanding and mutual respect. We were together in the experience instead of being divided. There are so many such organizations across Israel doing this work. A few that immediately come to mind are Women Wage Peace, which gathers women from across the spectrum, religious and secular, Jewish, Arab, Druze, and Bedouin, working from the premise that peace is possible. Givat Haviva International School in Haifa, which brings Christian, Muslim, and Jewish students to live and study together. And the Dead Sea Guardians, an organization I just learned about this week when we screened their documentary film, which follows an Israeli, Jordanian, and Palestinian who swam across the Dead Sea to bring awareness to the ironic fact that the Dead Sea is dying. The film is powerful, moving, and devastating all at once. These organizations are dedicated to building bridges across difference, creating partnerships, finding commonalities, and seeing the humanity in each other. It is meaningful work that we don't often hear about in the news, and each, in their own way, embody the meaning of the Southern Y'all. Now, somewhere along the way, the sermon took a serious turn that I hadn't planned. I wanted to explore how the word Y'all brings people together in unexpected ways. What I didn't expect was how serious or impactful Y'all could be in our lives, whether it's with a simple question, how y'all doing? An invitation to Y'all for a Seder meal, or working together to bring peace to all Y'all in Israel and the world. It turns out that Y'all really does bring people together in surprising ways. Kind of like our last day in New Orleans, when I happened to strike up a conversation with a random stranger in the park, something I'm prone to do mostly to embarrass my kids, but commonplace in the South. And she asked, "Where are y'all from?" "Michigan," I said. She asked, "Do y'all know the Plotkins?" Well, as a matter of fact, I do. And that, my friends, is how Y'all works. Uniting people, creating lasting bonds, and building community. It is a powerful word indeed. So, in the words of Jason Plotkin, Shabbat Shalom, y'all.